Well, our leadership model is very simple. It's head, heart, and hands. Head is future focused, heart is empathy, and hands is do. We are a leave it with me, consider it done culture. So doing is a very important part of leadership here. It's a very important part. But equally important is the ability to look ahead, to look around corners, to think about where the industry is going, how we're going to lean into those trends, letting go of the edge of the pool, taking some risks, where as a company, we're pretty risk adverse, leaning into robotics in ways that we never have done before, et cetera, which is kind of uncharted territory for us. So I look for that, the ability to look ahead, future focused, anticipate what's coming. And I also look for empathy. People have gone through a lot. We've all gone through a lot around the world over the past 6 years. And it seems like it's just kind of a crazy place these days. And so I really want people to be very empathetic in their leadership and to walk in the shoes of others. And so I look for people who are willing to do that, who are willing to actually go on car and deliver packages. I'm looking for people who are willing to sort packages, unload trailers and load trailers, spend time with folks who are out there making it happen, who really matter. The corporate office, we don't matter so much. It's the people who are front facing who are making it happen.
Welcome to Franklin Covey's On Leadership. I'm your host, Jennifer Colosimo. On Leadership provides insight to our listeners through discussions with senior leaders, thought leaders, practitioners with earned experience, all focused on the human side of strategy and transformation. Joining us today is Carol Tomé, the Chief Executive Officer of UPS since 2020 and a member of the board since 2003. Carol leads the world's premier package delivery and global supply chain management solutions company and its team of approximately 460,000 UPSers. She is the architect of UPS's customer first, people-led, innovation-driven strategy and is positioning UPS to be the premium small package provider and logistics partner for customers in more than 200 countries and territories. Before joining UPS, Carol served as the Home Depot's chief financial officer for nearly 2 decades and previously held various other senior leadership roles at the company. During her tenure as CFO, Home Depot doubled sales to over $108 billion and generated a 450% increase in shareholder value. Carol Tomé's leadership at UPS shows that even in a world of planes, trucks, and algorithms, the real differentiator is still human capability. How leaders at every level put purpose first and think, decide, and execute under pressure. Carol Tomé, welcome to On Leadership. We're so grateful you're here.
Well, Jen, I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. We're looking forward to a discussion about your career as well as the impact you're driving at UPS. So let's start with that decision to become CEO after being on the board since 2003, after a storied career at Home Depot. Almost 20 years of that as the CFO. Tell us how that decision came to be, particularly at a time that you could have considered retirement.
Well, right. So back in the 2019 timeframe, UPS was going through CEO succession planning work. And they worked with a third party to build the CEO scorecard of the future, the skills and attributes that the company believed the next CEO needed to possess. And when they matched that CEO scorecard of the future against the existing leadership team, they're like, well, this is an awesome team, but they're not quite ready. They're not ready to take that CEO role. And so the board decided to go to the outside. And the head of the nomination and governance committee came to me and said, well, Carol, we think you fit. We think you fit this profile. And I'm like, me? I'm 62 years old. You don't think I'm too old? He's like, no. Our retirement age is 75. And I'm like, oh, well, why would I do that? Because seriously, Jen, I had retired. I had already announced my retirement. from Home Depot, a company I dearly loved. And I was on my farm. I have a farm in Northwest Georgia. I was on 3 corporate boards. I created a foundation with my husband. So I had my next chapter laid out. And when they came, I was incredibly flattered and honored, but I was also like, why? Why would I do that? So I went through, like everyone does, sort of a list of the reasons why I might. And the first reason was I'm a values-based person, and UPS is a values-based company. So I'm like, well, check. We're aligned there from a values perspective. The second thing is that I love to develop people, and I have a pretty good track record of it. So I thought, well, if I come on board, I could develop the next CEO. And wouldn't that be fun? So check. Then I'm like, I really like to create value. And I think if I got inside the company, I could figure out the dials to turn to create some value. And wouldn't that be fun? So check. And then I went to my husband, who is fully retired, and we've been married now 42 years. And I said, Ramon, what do you think about this opportunity? And he said, would you please go back to work? You are driving me crazy. So I'm like, all right, check. So, everything was checking, but I was still wrestling with it candidly a bit. And so one day I was working out with my trainer, and I said to her, I said, Sayeda, I just don't know. I just don't know if this is my calling. And she said, Carol, you have to do this. You must do this for the women of the world. I'm like, oh, right. Check. So I was all in and just incredibly honored to be named the incoming CEO in March of 2020, now over 6 years ago.
Yes. And let me join the women that thank you for taking the role, as well as I'm sure many, many, many men. 2020 is when you took the role.
Yeah.
If you can think of anything more disruptive, and at Franklin Covey, we've done research that says 87% of leaders view disruption as something to totally avoid. It's not an opportunity for growth and innovation. And yet you did take that opportunity for growth and innovation. What are some of the decisions you made early on that now, with having that tail, you can look back and say, I'm glad I did that?
Well, the first thing, of course, was to keep our people safe. We were essential workers. We couldn't shelter in place. We had to keep essential goods moving around the world. So that was job number one, is how do we keep our people safe? And, on the first few days, it was like, well, wash your hands, because we didn't have the protective gear necessary to keep our people safe. But we were able to bring the protective gear in, and we changed our operating plans, and we kept commerce moving during that incredible time of disruption. In fact, we did so by hiring people into our company. In the second quarter of 2020, we hired 45,000 people into our company to keep commerce moving around the world. We also at that time leaned into complex healthcare logistics, because we knew that pharmaceutical companies were working rapidly to find a vaccine that would fight the COVID-19 virus. And so we wanted to make sure that we were ready to deliver that vaccine when the vaccine became available to the market. And we were. When the first vaccine became available to the market, we delivered that through cold chain. We delivered 1 billion vaccines with 99.9% effectiveness when that vaccine became available to the market. So, that was a business model change for us, but it also gave us the authority to play in complex healthcare logistics. Fast forward to 2026. Well, we're now the leader in this space. So we've been investing in this complex healthcare logistics space and are now recognized as the leader. A few other things happened during that time. I'm a big believer in purpose, and we knew what we did. We moved 6% of the US GDP every day, 2% of the world's GDP, but we hadn't declared our why. And I think the why is a rallying cry for all companies. And when your company is large as we, nearly 500,000 employees, we needed to land on that why. So we put together a cross-functional team of UPSers, and they did a magical job of interviewing customers and retirees and suppliers and employees and communities. And they iterated and iterated and iterated and landed on our why, which is this: moving our world forward by delivering what matters. And I love that because you can unpack it in so many different ways. It's not just about moving goods, it's about doing good too. So let me take you back to the vaccines. While we were delivering those COVID-19 vaccines in a commercial way, we were getting paid for that. We also delivered vaccines through our foundation or through our philanthropic arm. So we delivered vaccines for free using drones in Rwanda, places where people needed vaccines and had no access to them. So, we weren't just moving goods, we were doing good too. And that purpose has been part of us now for over 6 years, leveraging the amazing culture of our company, which now is 119 years. Maybe one other thing from a business model perspective is, the U.S. small package market has changed. Well, actually, supply chains have changed. And as we actually understood the dynamics within the industry, we said, all packages aren't created equal. So we're going to lean into those packages that value our global smart integrated network and lean away from some others. We're going to lean into businesses where we can make some money, and we're going to lean away from others. In fact, we sold some businesses that weren't making any money. We called it better, not bigger. And that's been a real rallying cry for us strategically as well.
The rules of leadership are being rewritten in real time. With the rise of AI and constant market disruption, business as usual is a recipe for stagnation. Franklin Covey's new insight report, Where Are All the Great Leaders?, is a deep dive into the mindsets and behaviors required to lead through the unknown. Download your free copy from the show notes. I love the value of hindsight, being able to look back and saying the fact that we got into healthcare logistics, the fact that we really focused on our purpose, the fact that we started to look at where we could be better, not bigger, is working for the organization. As you think about that small business, as a driver, whether you're making a critical delivery at a hospital or through your philanthropic arm in Rwanda, or dropping the decorations for my mother's birthday party that's coming up that were so critical that I receive, how do you keep that front and center, both the business need, getting the results that you need for this storied 118-year business, and the purpose and what we're doing that is good? How do you do that with, 460,000 people that are UPSers?
Yeah. So we were founded by an entrepreneur whose name was Jim Casey. He was 18 years old when he and a buddy took out a $100 loan and started delivering, packages on bicycles. And Jim Casey said, service is the sum of many little things done right. And service defines us. So we are, when you talk to a UPSer, you say, what matters most? It's service. And that starts with on-time delivery. So we have invested in our global smart integrated network, and it is an integrated network, to make sure that we have the best on-time delivery of any carrier. And we do. We've been recognized now for the past 8 years by an independent third party as having the best on-time service. But it's not just on-time service. It's providing capabilities that make it easier for both our shippers and our recipients to do business with UPS. And we've been really focused on absorbing the complexity of supply chains so that we can present simplicity to those who we serve. And we are very metric driven. We're an engineering driven company. So I could show you the dashboard that I look at every day that is eye-popping. But with the dashboard, it helps us understand where we might have some service failures. Perhaps there's a weather event. There could be service failures. And how do we recover from those service failures to make sure that we get packages to the place where they're intended? We've also invested big time in customer care. Our on-time delivery is 97, 98%. It's pretty good, best in class.
Mm-hmm.
That still means the packages are late. And when packages are late, it doesn't matter if it's decorations for your mom's birthday party or if it's critical medicine. People want to know what's going on. So we have invested in our customer care group around the world to leverage AI, artificial intelligence, to improve that experience. When we started this journey, our first call resolution was pretty dismal. It was in the low teens. It took a lot of time to get an answer to the question. By using technology, we've got lots of data. We have 70 petabyte of data. By using technology, our first call resolution is now 70%. That puts us in best in
Oh,
class.
wow.
Yeah, it puts us in best in class. And this is about, Jen, about being intentional.
Yes.
Our strategic framework is customer first, people led, innovation driven. If you truly are customer first, then you have to be intentional about what that means. Before we started that customer care journey, we measured our performance by how many minutes our care provider was on the phone with the customer. So they were quick to get off. They were quick to hang up the phone, right? Because they want.
Right.
I'm like, no,
That
we're
was how they
measuring.
were measured.
That's how they were measured. So we're like, no. Let's measure first call resolution. That's customer first. And by using technology, guess what? We're doing it at less cost. So that's a win for us and a win for our customer.
There are so many things that were interesting about what you just shared. I'd like to start just with, for you as the CEO or, your direct team or leaders, what I'm hearing so much and have experienced myself is we have so much data. And particularly with the capability we're building in AI, we could cut it a million ways. How do you, especially with your CFO background and transitioning into CEO, how do you decide what's on your giant scoreboard?
Yeah. So it really comes down to what's wildly important and counting what counts. And by that, I mean, what metrics are actually going to drive the financial results that you're seeking to deliver. And we've worked really hard to connect those dots because candidly, they weren't so connected. So we worked really hard to connect those dots. And while if it's not wildly important, we're just not spending a lot of time on it. We just don't. You can have it on demand if you want to look at something, but it's got to be wildly important to spend the time there. We've also worked on making sure that our data is clean. This is a real challenge for lots of companies, particularly older companies who have legacy systems. So we have 5 data domains, and the data within those domains is pretty clean. It's better on the customer side and on the engineering side than it is perhaps in some of the other domains. But we're bringing all the domains up so that the consuming applications, whatever they may be, are consuming off of one version of the truth rather than multiple versions of the truth. And it all starts with the data at the end of the day. It's got to be clean. You got to put it in domains. You got to understand the consuming applications. And then you've got to focus on what matters. And then also be aware that everything you count, that everything that matters can't be counted. And what's that? Because everything that matters can't be counted. And what is that, and how do you make sure you keep your ears open to what those factors are?
Yes, so insightful. I think many organizations are finding they could do immense things, but they don't have clean data.
Right.
Or they have so many versions of the truth, you don't know how to make a decision based on it. And you mentioned some of the things that you can't count. And with customer first, people led, and innovation driven, how do you keep the customer front and center within your leadership team? How do you bring the customer into the room in your executive meetings or other meetings you're in across the organization?
So our executives are assigned customer accounts. We call them high impact executives. These are not salespeople. Salespeople have accounts too, but our executives, high impact executives, have several accounts that they are assigned to, and their job is to stay close to the customer, understanding the challenges that customer may be dealing with from a supply chain or just general business, to create trust between ourselves and our customers. It's all about relationship, and I know personally I do a lot of that because it just keeps me sort of up to date on what challenges they're facing with, and also allows me to talk about how we might be able to help. Because when you think about UPS, we play in every step of a supply chain, from factory floor to front door. And ever since the pandemic, around the world, companies are challenged with supply chains. So I'm like, well, let me share with you how we can help you along the way. And oftentimes people are like, well, I don't think of you from that perspective. I think of you as a small package carrier, or I think of you as someone that I use for brokerage, or I think of you as someone that I use for ocean or air freight. I never thought about connecting all the dots. And like, if you connect the dots, we can actually lower your cost and improve the visibility of your supply chain. So that's something that we're really focused on right now as we think about the future of our company, is not just being a carrier, but being a provider of solutions.
A provider of solutions. And that investment of complex supply chain, logistics, the ability for you to bring that to customers, I would guess required behavior change from leaders within your organization as they thought about presenting your value proposition, talking to existing and potential customers. Everything was impacted by that. What are some things that you've done to ensure that leaders and their team members are coming along with you? You inevitably had to say no to some things as well, and that
Yeah.
was a change. What are you doing in terms of leadership capability to follow this immense progress you're making to the future?
Well, a lot of it is communication, and explaining the why. Why should we do this? Well, it expands the addressable market. All right, we like to grow. We want to grow. So expanding the addressable market, that's a good thing. Money isn't everything, but it doesn't hurt. And we now compensate. Yeah. And we compensate our people on total company results. Total company
Oh,
results.
okay.
Not just within the segment that they may be working. Salespeople are compensated differently. So it's not everything, but it doesn't hurt. If you can get people aligned from a comp perspective, it's amazing what things can happen.
Amazing lever.
Amazing what can happen, right? Those are just a few of the things that we've done.
One of the reasons that you came is developing people. And I'm sure based on your 6 years there, whether you're there 10 more years or 15 or 2, you're looking at developing leaders at the highest level. What are some of the things that you look at perhaps were on the scorecard as they were looking at you when you met the criteria? What are some of the things that you think, okay, to be ready for a C-level role, here are some of the considerations, and some may be unique to UPSers?
Well, our leadership model is very simple. It's head, heart, and hands. Head is future focused, heart is empathy, and hands is do. We are a leave it with me, consider it done culture. So doing is a very important part of leadership here. It's a very important part. But equally important is the ability to look ahead, to look around corners, to think about where the industry is going, how we're going to lean into those trends, letting go of the edge of the pool, taking some risks, where as a company, we're pretty risk adverse, leaning into robotics in ways that we never have done before, et cetera, which is kind of uncharted territory for us. So I look for that, the ability to look ahead, future focused, anticipate what's coming. And I also look for empathy. People have gone through a lot. We've all gone through a lot around the world over the past 6 years. And it seems like it's just kind of a crazy place these days. And so I really want people to be very empathetic in their leadership and to walk in the shoes of others. And so I look for people who are willing to do that, who are willing to actually go on car and deliver packages. I'm looking for people who are willing to sort packages, unload trailers and load trailers, spend time with folks who are out there making it happen, who really matter. The corporate office, we don't matter so much. It's the people who are front facing who are making it happen. I'm also looking at people who are incredibly curious, really curious, and then I'm investing in them. So a few years ago, I'm like, oh man, we got to up our digital fluency. So we worked with a university here in Atlanta called Emory and put together a digital fluency program for our leaders, put all of our officers through it, and many, many more. That was good. I'm like, got to do it again. We got to up our AI fluency. So now we're rolling out AI training across the board because it's going to impact every job in our company. And so you got to invest in people. You got to expect them to invest in themselves too, but you got to invest in people. We tend to move people around a bit. We do a lot of job rotations here. You can have many, many jobs under one shield. UPS has got a shield as its brand. They have many, many jobs under one shield. And I think that's pretty cool too. And getting people kind of prepared to take on bigger jobs. And for my executives, the top of the house, people who are my direct reports, they each have a personal coach. I invest in their development. They go to programs. They have personal coaches with a third party. And I'm a big believer in feedback. It's a gift if you're willing to accept it. So I give a lot of
Yes.
feedback. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that really struck me is the balance of your investment and what you're looking for and cultivating between the tech, of course, AI, of course, digital. You cannot go behind there. And then the hybrid other side, what are your human skills? And I'm looking for empathy. I'm looking for them being willing to deliver packages and being curious. The job rotation is a wonderful opportunity under that one shield. And then the investment in personal coaching. You've got to have people, it sounds like, and you mentioned curiosity, that really want to continuously learn and aren't saying, I'm done. And you see that in you, but it sounds like that's one of the things you're really looking for.
I really look for it. And I have a pretty good track record here. I have 5 people who work for me who are CEOs of publicly traded companies, and about 16 people who work for me who are CFOs of publicly traded companies. So I'm pretty good at this. I kind of, I've got a nose for talent, and I work on it. I think actually it's my job. I think that is my job, is to invest in others to help them reach their highest potential, whatever it may be. And it's different for all of us, right? But there's a high potential for everybody. You want to make sure that we give them the opportunity to get there.
Thank you. I thank you for your investment in potential, in addition to obviously UPSers' massive contribution to the economy. All of those things are amazing. As you mentioned, AI, and obviously critical for the future of the organization. You have invested heavily in supply chain logistics, automation, routing algorithms. As you talk with employees about investments, and maybe you've overcome this, but there tends to be at least pockets that have fear about the future as related to AI. Personal perspective is undoubtedly some jobs will change and some jobs will need to evolve into other things. How do you talk about that with employees in a way that continues to move you forward, but has empathy for this is a big change?
So we know that over time, as technology has evolved, some jobs have gone away, but new jobs have been created. So our focus is on the new jobs that will be created and how AI actually will enable that, and that we will move away from so much tasking and hours spent doing to more time thinking and strategizing and pushing the company forward. And people get a little bit jazzed about that. They're like, oh, wow, I won't have to do this report. I won't have to go through all these reports to figure out what I need to do today. You're going to push that information to me and I know what to do. And that actually, okay, I'm going to be more productive and I'm going to have more fun at it. And, so people get a little bit jazzed about it. Candidly, it is scary. It is scary but it's more exciting than scary if you think about it. As long as companies like UPS are really focused on making it happen and really focused on making it happen. Inside of our buildings, we're putting in robotics. We've got, by the end of this year, 68% of the sort will be automated. We've got robotic small sort induction. We've got automated label application, automated, bagging. We've got some robots that are unloading and loading trailers. So you're like, if you're inside the building, you're like, well, what's up for me? And I'm like, well, someone's going to have to run all this tech. How exciting is that? Right? That's
Yes.
a real cool job. So we call that, we're coming up with a sexier name, but like operator of the future, so the operator of the future is
something with a little more oomph, but for now, operator of the future is great.
Yeah. But the one thing I'll tell you what we're not doing, there's a lot of focus on autonomy. Mm-hmm. And, it's out there, it's available, it's real. But for our package car drivers, the men and women who are front facing, who have personal relationships with the customers they serve, I have no intention of replacing them with autonomy. None. They are our brand. They don't just deliver packages. They do good. I mean, they save people's lives. They come upon people who are in distress and they're able to save their lives. So I'm like, we're not messing with that. We're just not messing with that.
I think there will be something unique to customer experience that, of course, backend is supported by the exciting automation you're talking about and all of the opportunity that brings, but also the feeling when you're with a human. And obviously, yours makes such an impact in that human relationship.
It really does. I send out letters every month, usually every week. And these letters are recognizing our people for doing amazing things for our customers. And I'm just blown away by it. We've got a really unique culture here that we just want to cultivate and recognize and reward for their great hard work and efforts.
I bet they love getting a Carol Tomé written letter. That is lovely. And more executives should take up that opportunity to be writing and celebrating. I'm sure the feedback that you are generous with providing goes a lot better when there's also been positive spread around.
That's always the case. If you spend time building up deposits, if you have to take a withdrawal, it's a much easier experience.
It's much easier because they also know that you have your best intent at heart and you believe in their potential. So Carol, as we wrap up, I'd love to just talk some lightning round questions. You mentioned that before you took this role, you had started a philanthropic organization. Would love to talk about you outside of UPS. What are you excited about in terms of contribution, whether philanthropic, community, personal?
Well, my husband and I are really proud of the Tomé Foundation. We are focused on Tomé scholars. We have about 80 scholars. These are college kids who have a full ride scholarship and an experience. So this is way cool. Just had our first cohort graduate and they're on to doing amazing things, really amazing things. So we're proud about that. And we're also proud about what we call hometown giving, which is big investing here in Atlanta, as well as my hometown of Jackson, Wyoming, where we support a number of areas, including income inequality, healthcare, housing, the arts, and anything green, because we're all about sustainability personally. We've got 1,000-acre farm in the northwest part of Georgia, and all of it is held in a land trust, so it can never be developed. This is a National Historic District, the site of the second bloodiest battle in the Civil War. We have graves on our property going back to the 1800s. We have slave graves on our property that are sadly only marked with a stone, and we want to protect all of that. So we're excited about the opportunity and the incredible lessons that we've been given to be able to give back. We're purpose people. We believe to whom much is given, much is expected. And my personal purpose is lead to inspire, serve to create, give to remain. And it's that giving to remain. Hamilton, remember that song in Hamilton, like when you're gone, who remembers your name, who carries your flame?
I'm going to get a chill.
So I kind of like, yeah, I want to give to remain. And so does my husband. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So my last one, since that was such a meaningful and broad answer, I was thinking I might be nervous if I was the driver assigned to bring packages to your house. Maybe they aren't, but what's the last package that came to you at home?
Well, I got a package, or maybe several yesterday. We're planning a little beach trip and I needed some new beach clothes. So our UPS driver brought the packages to our doorstep and they do a fantastic job. In fact, one package went astray and it was lobsters for the holiday dinner. And they found that package and they got it to me in time for the holiday dinner. So it was awesome.
Well, thank you so much for investing time with On Leadership, Carol. Loved hearing about customer first, people led, innovation driven, head, heart, hands, what you're doing to take the organization, the storied organization forward, and appreciate your passion for people and development. Thank you so much, Carol Tomé, for joining us.
Well, it was my pleasure, Jen. Thank you very much.
And thank you to all of our listeners on Leadership. We'll see you next time on Leadership.